Hi everyone, this is Rohit from Lifestyle Mastery. Today I'm excited to have Nirali Zaveri, who's the founder of Frizz, which is building a credit card for freelancers. Freelancers struggle to access credit cards and personal loans because of the absence of monthly pay slips. Frizz has created a tailored credit score for them to enable easier access to credit. Nirali has worked with MasterCard as product management specialist and has done a bachelor's from Singapore Management University. Frizz was part of Y Combinator 21 batch. Welcome to the show, Nirali.
Thank you, Rohit, for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Awesome. So, it's very interesting to have, a female CEO on board. Wanted to understand what's your background and what got you interested into startups.
Yeah, Rohit, I've always been inherently curious about the startup space, and right from university days, been involved in the fintech scene through small fintech clubs at SMU. And I think what really kicked it off for me was my start at Mastercard. So I actually started Mastercard in an internship program, and I realized that payments was really grandfathering innovation in the fintech space at that point in time in 2016, 2017. And it was just fascinating to watch all of these new ways in which customers were interacting with different payment flows and different digital wallets. And how that was just elevating the user experience across all levels. So I would say, yeah, being in the midst of that payment led fintech revolution was what really kickstarted it for me.
Interesting, and you worked with Mastercard for a couple of years. Do you think it really helped you, start your journey with Frizz?
Yes, absolutely. I think that because we're reaching a place in not just the fintech scene, but in the startup scene where people are solving problems that are a little bit more complicated to solve. I think the low hanging fruit has already been more or less gotten to, right? So we're going to see more CEOs, we're going to see more founders that cross over into the startup space after having gained experience in the corporate space to some
Right.
extent. And I think we're just going to be moving towards that more and more. In general, if you look at generally the average age of founders, that's been rapidly going up across the world. So the
Right.
whole phenomena of like college dropout founders that find the next big idea, I think it's just going to get harder to do. But that being said, again, the fintech space is such a complicated space to crack into. I would say it's not like a typical startup space because you have a lot of influence of one, obviously gaining trust from customers, and two, being able to play within all the regulatory framework that's out there for obviously customer benefit as well. So getting that intermingling right is super crucial to having a successful go-to-market strategy in the fintech space. And I think having that experience in a corporate with very well-defined processes and experience in terms of launching products, and coming from a place that has all of those learnings and the lens of being a lot in terms of thinking through not only ideas but basically executing them properly in the fintech space. So I would say time in corporates in general um, does help to some extent in terms of phrasing a lot of strategies for startups. Other than that, specifically for myself, I would say I spent some time in the infrastructure product that runs Google Pay, Apple Pay, Samsung Pay from MasterCard. And that really gave me a very good idea of digital wallet adoption and go to market for digital wallets, and how exactly these card solutions were scaling and acting as the backbone of a lot of services that companies were providing. It was also a very good time to be in the space because I saw a lot of startups pivoting to fintech as a monetization strategy. So there's this, I mean, I would say, general move in the startup space where a lot of VCs also kind of joke about this in the sense that every startup is a fintech.
Yeah.
And so that was, I think, a very amazing thing to witness front and center and to be a part of as well. The other key experience for me at MasterCard was being a part of their commercial payments team. It was while my time there, I was designing small business credit card portfolios for large issuers in Southeast Asia. And it was my time there that I realized, there is a huge gap in terms of how freelancers and digital entrepreneurs that are by themselves access credit. And that was, I would say, the genesis of the idea for Frizz as well.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of interesting points you pointed out, and I
Mm-hmm.
just look back at my experience because I was an operator and worked with OYO rooms where the founder was almost a college dropout. But interesting
Yeah.
you pointed out that the age of startup founders is going up, and it just shows that the ecosystem is really evolving. But looks like the majority of workforce in America is going to be freelancers within the next 10 years. Do you see the same trend also happening in Asia and other places?
Yeah, I would say the freelancing revolution has really, really gone into high gear because of COVID and because of remote work. A lot
Yeah.
of people are realizing the benefits of productivity remotely, and a lot of companies are rethinking their entire workforce. They're moving to a model that's more flexible, more agile. As a result, you're just going to see more demand and more supply for freelancing in general. I think platforms like Upwork, Fiverr have been growing 20% month on month. So that's very, very exciting for us because we're at this crossroads of just changes in how people work. And a lot of people are calling it the human cloud of the future, where people are just going to work on a project basis and move flexibly between organizations. That's kind of the utopia that we're really building for. In specifically, if you look at Southeast Asia, and I mean, let's also include South Asia in there. I would say 70% of all the white collar freelancers that work on platforms like Upwork, Fiverr, Freelancer are actually from this region. So even though we hear about very large numbers of freelancers in the US, actually a large population and majority is actually based out of South Asia and Southeast Asia. Reason for this is, I mean, there are cost reasons. There are also reasons in terms of how digitally savvy and young the population is, and also local job conditions. So what we see is that a lot of the young population is actually turning towards freelancing. They benefit from an exchange rate differential largely, mainly because their employers tend to be in US and Europe. And they also have the ability to get a lot of exposure without necessarily having too much prior experience. And so, I mean, a large part of the millennial population is really adopting freelancing as their main source of income.
Yeah, I think millennials are looking at freelancing as an option. But I want to talk about Frizz. What are some of the products that you are launching? Is it just a credit card, or are you also going to offer loans and other product offerings for freelancers?
Yeah, I think so. Let me start off with why a credit card.
Yeah.
And I think all of the customer conversations we've had, as well as everything that we've been hearing from freelancers, not only in Singapore, but in other countries in Southeast Asia, like Philippines, Thailand, Indonesia, is that they struggle quite a lot when they try to access any kind of credit. Reason being, when they try to access consumer credit, they're immediately asked for monthly pay slips. And as a non-salaried employee, that's super difficult for them to provide, right? So they get kind of excluded from most of the consumer banking loan options. On the commercial banking side, because they have a non-conventional business model that is very light on inventory, they also tend not to have very savvy accounting platforms. And so they don't have balance sheets or profit and loss statements to provide. And as a result, they also get excluded from small business lending. And so in general, we knew that a lending focus was something that was really going to bring value to the end customer. Specifically, we went into the credit card space mainly because there's a flexibility with cards that's not there with a loan that's directly debited to your account. You only pay for what you spend. And I think it was mainly that flexibility that resonated quite a lot with the customers. That being said, we're also currently working on extending the product roadmap to other lending products like invoice financing, and you'll see other products come up on the platform as well.
Well, that's very interesting. And yeah, I think that the couple of products, I think like Oxygen, which is also I think Y Combinator Pack, which is a product very similar to yours. But I just wanted to understand, are you using any growth strategies when you're looking at growing a B2C fintech product like yours? Because I do think, like we mentioned before the call, that it's a very competitive space. But have you started looking at adding more users on your platform for now?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're actually quite closely following this fantastic book called Traction. I would recommend all your readers to check it out if you haven't already spoken about it, but I would be surprised if you haven't. And we are very closely tracking against most of the strategies mentioned in the book, which the main premise of the book is, having an unbiased approach in terms of testing growth strategies and being able to leverage on various different channels and letting those channels surprise you. So our approach has been on how do we test out various strategies. So it could be SEM, SEO, it could be content-based marketing, it could be viral marketing loops, it could be building communities, and testing all of these out to see what works the best over the long term. I'd say it's too early to say for us, but all of these have started playing a major role in terms of how we reach out to customers. I think one big thing with understanding freelancers and the mindset of freelancers is that they've really written off a lot of financial products. They've reached a place where they don't necessarily trust banks, mainly because they've always been lured into products and then been given this large checklist of things they have to complete to get access to products. So there's that trust factor, which I think is super, super crucial in terms of actually banking for freelancers and providing them a service. And so in general, affiliate and influencer-led marketing or referrals that come from people that freelancers really trust, I think drives home the point a lot better than traditional paid ads would.
All right, that's very interesting. And I wanted to understand, when you build a startup, it's important to always have cash in the bank and hire the best of talent. How do you look at hiring the best of people? Considering you call it a Y Combinator, but how do you convince people to join your company?
Yeah, I think the best motivator for employees as they think about businesses that they want to join is tends to be product market fit. So right. For us, that's kind of the heart of everything. And for us, basically giving our employees the ability to be a part of something that really gives them immense satisfaction in terms of changing the fintech scene in Southeast Asia and being able to really leave a mark on this landscape. I think that's something that honestly drives everyone at Frizz. And I think that that's mainly the most important pull, if you may like it. Most of our employees have also been freelancers in the past. So they really empathize with the pain point already. And, I think that in a way also translates to how relevant the solution is to our end customers as well. So yeah, I would say it's a mix of bringing together like-minded and driven people that really, really find a lot of purpose in changing and providing value to freelancers.
Very interesting that some of your employees are freelancers. I think the purpose and passion for the startup will always be there. Right? Are there any interview questions which you think are crucial to ask for a startup founder?
That's interesting. I think a question that I personally really, really enjoy asking is asking people to tell me about a project that they're most proud of. And the responses I get are very, very different. Again, even between males and females, the responses are very different. And yeah, I really think I get a lot of insight into that individual through that question. Mainly because you understand exactly, I mean, you see what makes their eyes light up during interviews. And I think that's super crucial in terms of understanding cultural fit, understanding also what kind of problems and what kind of techniques this individual uses to solve problems. So yeah, that's always been a favorite. Some examples of I think responses I've gotten, and people tend to actually pick out projects, let's say, that they've worked with in university, not their first jobs or their second jobs. And they might even talk about like certain volunteering activities they're doing on the side, right? And that just makes you realize, hey, maybe this person is kind of on this journey of self-awareness and trying to go back to a certain career aspiration that they had that they haven't been able to explore. And, we try to think about whether that creates the right fit for who we're hiring.
Got it. Yeah, no, that's very interesting. And what would you really look for a talent who wants to join a startup? I understand you work with a big company called Mastercard, but would you would you look at the brand name of a university or a company, or the aptitude and attitude of a employee who wants to join a startup?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for us is at this stage, definitely it's initiative. We basically want people that are driven to solve for problems on their own and to be able to, in that sense, be self-starters themselves. I think that's the most crucial piece. And so I would say attitude and approach towards problem solving is one of the first things that we look at Frizz. And not so much brand names. I think in my experience from, having, interviewed candidates across different profiles, what works best is having people that don't have necessarily preconceived notions that they're very married to. Because the space we're in, we need to constantly, approach the problem, whether it's traction, whether it's product development. We need to approach that with a fresh pair of eyes. So anyone that's too entrenched within a system isn't necessarily going to question enough things. And so we look for a good blend in terms of someone that understands the space, but also has the initiative and the ability to look at the problem from a fresh perspective.
Right. And, I wanted to understand from the perspective of a corporate person who wants to join a startup, should candidates have to take pay cut to join startups? Because there's a lot of hyper funded startups which have come in the last couple of years. But, would you advise candidates to take a pay cut to join a startup, especially in a pre-seed stage?
Yeah, I think it's very fascinating, but I would say the number of or the kind of recognition that startups get from corporate employees that are trying to make the switch typically happens after Series A, Series B, and that you have to also understand culturally that there's a certain lifestyle, there's a certain way of operating that employees that have traditionally been in corporate are very used to. And depending on the growth stage of the startup, they might be suitable to join when you've already gotten product market fit to some extent, and the main objective is to scale the business, right? So I would say that generally just it helps if both parties are more mindful of the stage that they're at, and culturally whether incorporating a lot of corporate talent is going to work. In general, though, for the pre-seed stage, for the seed stage, I would say yes. Corporate employees, if they're really willing to get that experience of executing something that started with a simple vision, and bringing that to life, that's a very, very unique experience. And that's unlike anything you can ever experience at a corporate. And you should absolutely be willing to take a pay cut, negotiate in terms of being on the cap table, negotiate so that you are, your goals are aligned to helping the company succeed. That's not an issue at all. And I think grow with the company in that aspect. So just for that experience, personally, if I was just in the shoes of a corporate employee, I would pay for that. Just because the way I consider, working at an early stage startup, I almost look at it as an MBA in real life, right? And a lot of employers are also, I think, valuing startup experience a lot more than traditional MBAs now. And so, I would totally see it as that opportunity to go out and really do something that you've never done before. Because I think one thing I really noticed when I transitioned out of a corporate into a startup was that you're no longer standing on the shoulders of giants. You're building your credibility all by yourself. You're not a huge, 20-person team that's planning a go-to-market, for example, right? And so you can't do the small part of the puzzle. I kind of almost joke about how I am literally doing everything that no one else in the company wants to do as a CEO, right? And I think that's a mindset that you really, really have to come with when you start in an early stage company.
Yeah, no, I think it reminded me of my days when I got into startups, when I took a pay cut, and I think my family was very worried, but I think it all went on well. And you also point out very well that a CEO has to do everything, which others would not be able to take up. And my follow-up question is about uh, if you look at the female CEOs who've been able to raise funding. You would believe that 50% of the workforce are women, but the same share of funding hasn't really happened. What are your thoughts, and what was your journey as a founder of a company, as a female CEO, and how should women participate more in startups?
I think, there's a lot of issues over there to unpack. But largely a huge, like the way I look at equality, and maybe if we can just take a step back, equality in the workplace, equality in the startup space, I think there's a difference in equality of opportunity versus equality of outcome, right? So equality of outcome is basically saying something like, oh, these many seats are reserved for female founders, or VC should invest 50% of their portfolio only in female founders. I think that equality of outcome is very artificial, difficult to impose. And so we're not, having any over the top measures like this that involve affirmation, like, just reservation in a way, right? That's not something that I advocate for. But the piece for me that matters very close to my heart is equality of opportunity. And that is basically the thought process that any female founder that is already in a position of starting a company, has necessary level of conviction, etc., is given the same opportunity and the same platform that male founders are provided with. So just because of your gender, you're not being discriminated against in any way. And I think in terms of equality of opportunity, there are lots of different avenues that are certainly developing for female founders, and I'm very happy directionally that the entire, not only just the VC space, but even in terms of how employers view working for a female, employees view working for a female founder, how partners are, how open partners are in terms of striking important, say, B2B partnerships and relationships. I think there are doors opening because a lot of the decision makers as well, are increasingly female, and so they understand that female perspective. Specifically, though, if you step back and look at the fintech space, and my experience personally, I haven't interacted with, maybe I can count on my fingers how many female partners at VCs I have pitched to. I also haven't pitched to many execs as we grow our lender portfolio, as we grow our partnerships within the fintech and banking space. Because that's a crucial part of lending on the Frizz platform. So yeah, I think there's quite a lot of, there's a sense of not having a lot of females in the fintech space in general. And that's something that I'm super aware of, and I think super grateful for the opportunity that I have as well. And then if you also specifically look at what is it that in a way prevents females or it's probably a reason why not many females are starting up in general. I think the issues there are much deeper, and they're more related to having conviction, having courage, believing to begin with that you can build something by yourself or build something with other co-founders. I think there's a lot of work that's more at the grassroots level that has to be done in terms of providing women with the necessary inner beliefs and the inner confidence to step out and build something of their own. So that's going to take a while.
I think thank you for this answer, because I've also understood what are some of the underlying issues, but I think giving equal opportunity, that is something which has to be given across not only one but across diverse founders. And Nirali, what do you think would be the future of everyday banking services? If you look at financial banks, they've been slower in adopting to digital products, but the kind of speed that we have seen in fintech space, especially in Southeast Asia, Europe, and US, where do you see the banking services in the next couple of years?
Sure. I think we are experiencing something known as the segment of one in the finance space, where every customer is expecting an experience so tailored to them as if they're their own segment, right? And so you're having all of these amazing fintechs that have similar sounding products, similar sounding propositions, but they are targeting very different segments. They are focused on creating extremely tailored and personalized experiences. And I think that's the next forefront of fintech innovation in general. Specifically, yes, it applies very, very closely to B2C innovation. But even if you look at B2B, you're seeing, B2B always used to be such a canned space in terms of saying, hey, okay, this is a solution that I have for this large segment of customers that could be like billions of businesses, or, this applies to all these countries across the world. It's not tailored towards specific corridors or towards really very, very specific needs that businesses have. But we're seeing that change in terms of segmentation more and more within the B2B space as well. And so, yeah, I'm just very inclined to say that we're moving towards a very, very personalized and tailored world in the fintech space in general. Yeah. If you look at traditional players in banking, and specifically why we're targeting the fintech, the freelancer space, I think huge reason for that being is the mold around banking has always been on how do we support salaried employees. It's not been so much on how do we grow our credit scoring, how do we grow our understanding of incomes as income sources become more varied, become more fragmented, as the way people work becomes more flexible. And I think this crossroads that we're at in terms of a lot of innovation in the digital human cloud of the future, as well as banking, is a very, very exciting space. In general, if you look at the lending space and the kind of data that lenders are using to make lending decisions, 10 to 20 years ago, the main source of data was banking data, looking at how many assets an individual has in their current account, right? And how they tend to spend from their current account. But now you see lending decisions moving up the chain in terms of moving closer to the source of truth. So there are a lot of lending solutions that are starting to focus on payroll-related data for salaried employees. As more and more lenders recognize the importance of moving closer towards income as opposed to asset-based financing, because income is, again, more real-time. Income is more based on, I mean, it's less biased towards certain older models of operating. It's less biased towards old wealth, if you may. And income also enables the ability to flexibly credit score someone, and that has maybe lots of different sources of earning. So in general, we're seeing the lending space moving towards more income related data, and that's also our contribution in this space.
All right. And where do you see, Frizz going in the next couple of months and years? Are you looking to expand into other countries in Southeast Asia?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say there are two levels that we're thinking of in terms of the product roadmap. First level is expanding beyond just the credit card service. So we're introducing new services on invoice financing that enable freelancers to get paid upfront. And then we're also building out, I would say, the entire stack for a neobanking play in the freelance space. We're very excited to be first in market in Southeast Asia to be doing this. And I think, there's just a lot of responsibility that comes with that as well. So we want to honestly make sure we serve our freelancer customers and listen to them every step of the way. And other than Singapore, we're going to be launching pretty soon in Philippines as well. And our waitlist in Philippines is going to go live soon as well. So would love to reach out to any freelancers that are listening to your podcast right now that are based out of Philippines to check out Frizz also.
Yeah, excited to know about your growth plans ahead. And Nirali, I quickly want to do the top three. What's your favorite business book?
Ooh, I would say currently my favorite business book is definitely Traction, and I already alluded to that. But do you want me to give you more than two?
No, I think Traction is good. We'll put that in the show notes. And if you could go back in time when you started working on Frizz, what is the one thing you would have done differently, or anything you would have, anything specific you would have done?
Yeah, I think absolutely. The building a fintech requires honestly hitting, I would say, hitting the ceiling and then looking at lots of different possibilities before you figure out the right way. Because with a fintech, it's not just purely a technology play. There is a lot of financial services knowledge that comes into the picture as well. And that is knowledge of regulation, that's awareness on how to acquire customers relatively quickly for something that involves a lot of trust. I think something I would take note of is that the MVP concept in financial services is very different from an MVP that's in any like general e-commerce B2C play, for example, right? The reason being is there's a huge element of trust involved. And so something that I would probably do differently is I would look at maybe one or two key partnerships early, instead of trying to pursue quite a lot of different opportunities early on and then facing roadblocks across all those opportunities. So I would say in terms of that MVP, it's not about quantity of partnerships. It's about one or two key quality partnerships that provide credibility, and help you to go to market really quickly. Yeah, that would be something that would totally help any listeners that are working on fintechs of their own as well.
Very interesting. And do you have any favorite online tool, for example, Gmail, Slack, Zoom?
Ooh, can I say I don't like any of those? No, but Zoom has honestly been my bread and butter, because Frizz was started during the pandemic, and the ability it gave me to just speak with anyone and everyone was wonderful. A big plug for me personally would be for LinkedIn. I think I met you through LinkedIn, Rohit.
Yes.
I personally use LinkedIn as a tool quite extensively, and I reach out to people that I would want to be connected to, need advice from. I reach out to people that are like-minded. I reach out to employees, and potential employees, and even customers through LinkedIn. And I think we were talking about that, just kind of go back a couple of questions when we were talking about equality of opportunity. I think tools like LinkedIn really create that opportunity, even for women like myself that are younger, starting off their careers. I didn't start off with any networks in the startup space. So right from being a part of different accelerators, right from getting the right partnerships with lenders, and also being able to hire my early team, I think using networking platforms and having the confidence and the trust to make that first move is game changing.
Absolutely. I think LinkedIn, I can't survive without LinkedIn. I think 90% of my podcast guests have come from LinkedIn. So,
exactly.
Yeah. And Nirali, what is the best way people can reach out to you and know more about Frizz?
Yeah, they can obviously interact with us through all of our Frizz social media channels. We'll definitely be sharing those URLs with you, on this podcast. And then they can also just directly reach out to me through LinkedIn. I'm always available.
We'll put that in the show notes. Nirali, thank you so much for taking your time speaking to us. I really enjoyed my conversation with you.
Thank you, Rohit. Pleasure is mine as well.